Hey guys, we're going to start with our notes today on page 2. And just going back to what we learned on Friday, we talked about regular factoring, basic factoring. You want to find the numbers that multiply to your last term, but will add to your middle term. And so we spent some time doing that. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, please stop this video and go watch the previous videos. And then also on Friday, we talked about factoring out a greatest common factor. And we will be talking about that today as it's important. So on page 2, we're going to be talking about factoring when the leading coefficient is not equal to 1. So that's what this says up here. The leading coefficient is your first term. So it's the first number that shows up in the correct order. So for instance, I do not have a 1 in front of this x squared. I have a 6. So I need to figure out how to factor when this happens. And your goal is to try to get rid of the number in front of the x squared. Sometimes it'll happen, sometimes it won't. But I'm going to teach you a couple tricks in order for that to be successful. So this says factor each trinomial. Remember to always look for a greatest common factor. So we are going to always start with, if we can find a greatest common factor, that's what we want to use. So I'm looking at these numbers and asking myself, is there a number I can divide each one of these by evenly for my greatest common factor? And I hope you agree with me that yes, I can take a 6 out of each one of these nicely. And remember, whatever number I divided everything by goes outside a pair of parentheses, and inside I have what I'm left with. So once I clean this up, 6x squared divided by 6. Those 6's are going to cancel, and I'm just left with x squared, or 1x squared, either way. Negative 30x divided by 6. We'll push that x aside and just do negative 30 divided by 6, which is negative 5, and then bring that x back. And then 36 divided by 6 is 6. All right, this is what we did on Friday. This is not new, but now we want to factor it completely. And so I'm going to keep going. In order to learn how to factor now, we are going to factor what's inside our parentheses. So now I'm going to take what I have and factor this. So it comes, now notice that my leading coefficient is now 1. The number in front of my first term is a 1. And so I can factor this pretty simply. I'm going to find the factors of 6. That add to negative 5. 1 and 6 are factors of 6, and 2 and 3. You got to be careful because you might think that these both work to get me negative 5. But remember, I want my last term is negative. Or I'm sorry, my last term, this 6 is positive. So if we recall to what we learned on Friday, when the last term or the constant term is positive, factors have to have the same operation. This is where I'm at. So I know that I'm either going to have x plus a number, or x minus a number, and x minus a number. Well, 1 and 6, positive and negative, will get me positive 7 or negative 7. So I don't want that. 2 and 3, if I add 2 and 3 together, I get positive 5. If I add negative 2 and negative 3 together, I get negative 5. So x minus 2, x minus 3. And if you still want to write that off to the side, your 4 options that I taught on Friday, you could have positive 2 plus positive 3, negative 2 plus negative 3, 1 positive and 1 negative, and keep going. You can always do that. Alrighty, and then so now I have this, and this 6 that was pulled out front didn't go anywhere, so it needs to show up in my final answer. So this factored completely will get me 6 times x minus 2 times x minus 3. And the idea is that if I were to multiply this all together, I would get this original equation. Okay, so you can always check your work with that. All right, let's do one more quick example using the greatest common factor. First things first, I have an error in this problem. This should be plus 12, so please change that. But I want to factor this, and I notice that my first term does not have a 1, it has a 4. And so I always think to myself when this happens, can I take out a greatest common factor? So yes, I can divide each thing here by 4. And that 4 that I divided everything by goes on the outside, and I'm left with x squared plus 8x plus 3, 16 divided by 4 is not 8, it is 4. And if you factor this, I'm going to do this quickly because I'm out of time, you should get x plus 3 and x plus 1 with that 4 on the outside because it didn't go anywhere. But please make sure that you pause and do it yourself.